So, you're running an event, right? That means you're collecting data. Names, emails, maybe even what people like to eat. But how you handle that data is no longer just a small detail. It's a massive legal responsibility. Okay, we're going to dive into this whole complex world of data privacy and really break it down. Make it super simple.
I love this quote because it just nails it. Look, attendee data, it's gold. It's how you measure success, create amazing experiences, and grow your event year after year. But, and this is a big but, if you get it wrong, the consequences can be, well, pretty severe. Not just the money, but the trust you have with your entire community.
And I'm not kidding when I say severe. Just look at this number. Under GDPR, the penalty for messing this up can be up to 20 million euros or 4% of your company's annual global turnover, whichever is higher. That's huge. So yeah, the big takeaway? This stuff isn't optional anymore. You've got to know the rules.
Okay, so to get a handle on all this, we need to know who's who and what the main laws are. It really just starts with a few basic definitions. Let's break down the key players in this whole data privacy game.
All right, first up, the data subject. This is pretty straightforward. It's just the person, the individual whose data you're collecting. For your event, that's literally everyone. Your attendees, your speakers, your sponsors, even your own staff. They're the ones at the very center of all these rules.
Next, we've got the data controller. And listen up, if you're the one organizing the event, spoiler alert, this is you. You're the one calling the shots, deciding what info to collect for registration and why you need it. And that means the buck really stops with you. You have the main responsibility for making sure everything's compliant.
And then there's the data processor. Think of these as your partners, your vendors. We're talking about your event management platform, your mobile app provider, that marketing agency you hired. Now, they're processing the data on your behalf. But, and this is super important, don't think that gets you off the hook. Under GDPR, liability is shared. So you, the controller, have to make sure your processors are playing by the rules too.
Okay, this table is super helpful because it puts the two big ones side by side, GDPR and CCPA. So on one hand, you've got GDPR from the EU. It's really strict. It's all about having a lawful reason to even touch someone's data, and it demands that clear, explicit opt-in. Then you've got California's CCPA. It's a bit different. It's more focused on being transparent and giving people the power to say, hey, stop, do not sell my information. It's more about the opt-out. And here's the kicker. Even if you're not in Europe or California, if you have attendees from there, these laws, they apply to you. No escaping it.
All right, that's the what. So how do you actually do this? Well, it all starts way before the first person even walks through the door. You have to build this strong foundation for data privacy right from the very beginning of your planning. It's absolutely critical.
And really, these three principles should be your North Star. First, purpose limitation. Just means you have to be super specific. Why are you collecting that phone number? Is it for emergencies or for marketing? You got to say it. Second is data minimization. This one's all about discipline. Ask yourself, do I really need to know their job title? If it's just a nice to have, then don't collect it. Only take what you absolutely need. And last but not least, transparency. Be open, be honest. Your privacy policy shouldn't be a 50-page legal document nobody can read. Make it clear, make it simple.
And this is exactly what I'm talking about. Take a look at this. It's a perfect example of what good consent looks like. The key thing to see here, the boxes are unchecked. Under GDPR, consent has to be an active choice. You can't assume anything. They have to physically tick that box. The days of pre-ticked boxes are long gone.
I love this comparison because it makes it so obvious. On the left, that's the old way of doing things, right? Super vague language, the box is already checked for you, total no-go. And on the right, that's the gold standard, a specific reason for each thing you're asking in separate, unchecked boxes. This isn't just a best practice, folks. It's a legal requirement.
Okay, this brings us to the million-dollar question, probably the one I hear the most. Your sponsors want leads. You have a list of attendees. So, can you share that list? The short answer is yes, but there are some really big rules you have to follow.
So here's the deal. You absolutely need explicit opt-in consent, and it has to be for this specific purpose. You can't just bury it in the fine print of your terms and conditions. Nope, it needs to be its own separate, clear choice. And this is huge. You can't make it a condition of entry. You can't say share your data or you can't come. Not allowed. Plus, you have to be upfront about who is getting the data. Name the sponsors or at least the types of sponsors.
All right, so you've nailed the pre-event stuff.
But your job isn't done. Your responsibilities for that data continue right through the event itself, and, yep, even after everyone's gone home.
Let's take something as simple and basic as a name tag. We use them at every event. I mean, it's got a name on it, maybe a company. That's personal data. So what's the compliant way to handle something that seems so simple?
Basically, you've got two main ways to justify this. First, you could go with legitimate interest. You're basically saying, hey, we need these for the event to function, for networking to happen. If you go this route, you can print them by default, but you must give people an easy way to say no, to opt out. The other way is consent. This is where you straight up ask for permission on the registration form, and if they say no, you can't bring their badge. Simple as that. You just have to pick the one that fits your event best.
Now, once the event is over, you can't just become a data hoarder. You can't let all that attendee info sit on a server collecting digital dust forever. There's a principle called storage limitation, which basically says you can only keep data for as long as you have a good reason to. And that's exactly why having a formal data retention policy is non-negotiable.
And a good policy isn't one size fits all. You have to break it down. For example, the basic registration info, maybe you keep it for a year to do some post-event analysis. That makes sense. But what about financial records, like ticket purchases? Well, tax law says you have to keep those for several years, so you do. And your marketing lists? You can keep those as long as you have valid consent, but you should be checking in on them regularly to make sure that consent is still active.
Okay, this next one is a deadline you absolutely need to burn into your brain. If the worst case scenario happens, a data breach, let's say a laptop with your attendee list gets stolen. Under GDPR, the clock starts ticking. You have just 72 hours to notify the authorities. This is exactly why having a plan before something happens isn't just a nice idea, it's completely essential.
Whew, okay, we have covered a ton of ground. So let's pull all of this together into a practical toolkit. Think of it as your checklist for success, a way to make sure your event is built on a solid foundation of trust and compliance.
So here we go, 6 concrete steps you can take right now. 1. Do a data audit. You need to know what you're collecting, why you're collecting it, and where it's all going. 2. Update your forms. Get in there and make sure your registration forms and privacy notices are crystal clear and use that proper opt-in consent. 3. Define your retention policies. Decide up front how long you're keeping different types of data. 4. Train your team. Every single person, from your volunteers to your senior staff, needs to know the rules. 5. Vet your vendors. Make sure every third party you work with is also compliant. And finally, number 6, have that incident response plan ready to go before you ever need it. And I really want to drive this point home. This is not just about dodging massive fines. Getting data privacy right is just plain good business. When attendees see that you respect their privacy, you're building trust. And trust leads to loyalty. And guess what? People who trust you give you better, more accurate data. And let's be real, in a super crowded event market, being the brand that people see as professional and trustworthy, that is a huge, huge advantage.
So as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with one final question to chew on. Every single choice you make about collecting and using data goes one of two ways. So, is your event strategy building trust, or is it creating risk? Honestly, the answer to that question is going to define the entire future of your events.